How are you doing? I'm Richard. Welcome back to my channel over and over again, the Arsenal podcast. This is going to be a show looking ahead to this weekend's game. Of course, we are away against Burnley, looking to follow up a good victory that we had, obviously, last weekend against Norwich. So it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a big game. And I'm joined by, or will be joined by, a couple of special guests, a couple of Burnley fans. They've both been on the channel before. It's going to be good to have them back. And that'll be coming up the other side of this. So, yeah, it's a big game, obviously, at the weekend for both clubs, Burnley and Arsenal, of course, at Turf Moor, 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. We're going to be looking ahead to that game right now. I say, joining me, I've got some special guests. They've both been on the channel before. First of all, we've got Joe from the Turfcast podcast, which is always a bit of a mouthful to say, but I think I got it right.
How you doing, Rich? You all right?
Yeah, not bad at all. Great to have you back on again. Obviously, we had a chat last season, didn't we, before the game, which turned out to be a draw in the end. Let's hope from our point of view it's a better result this time, but I'm sure you'll be hoping for the same. And also as well, coming back again for another time, it's been on the channel a couple of times actually, it's Dan from Turf Moor House. I knew you've sort of rebranded your channel, haven't you?
Yeah. Thought I'd take it in a different direction, take it in my own direction. And I think one of us wanted to do YouTube, one of us didn't. So let one do one and let the other do the other.
No, that seems fair enough, and it's good to have both of you guys back on the channel again as well. So I suppose really it's probably a more important game for both clubs than we maybe would have anticipated at this point in the season with the start that we both had. I did watch your game on Monday against Everton to try and get a little bit of an insight into exactly how you were playing, and you seem to actually, Joe, I'll come to you first. I thought you actually played quite well for a lot of that game and then ran out of steam a little bit.
I don't think we ran out of steam. I think it's the same problem that we've had so far this season. We play well for 45 minutes to an hour. We go 1-0 up. They changed the system, as Rafa did. He brought Gomez on, three in the middle, and just overran us in the midfield. Same with Brighton on the first day of the season. Potter, 1-0 up. He brought Lallana on, 3 in the middle. Overran us in midfield, and then we got beat. We just lost the midfield battle on both games. The Leeds game was a little bit different. We were the better side for pretty much all of that game, apart from the last 20, 15 minutes. And I won't say we got overran in midfield on that one. I think we were victims of our own mistakes there. I think we just sat back, and eventually we just cracked. A bit of a fortunate goal from Leeds, but our goal was pretty scrappy as well, to be fair. So, there's encouraging signs there, but yeah, I think I'm pretty much expecting something similar. I think we'll start the game pretty well. Typical Burnley. We'll put a few crosses in. We've seen against Brentford that you couldn't really handle some crosses and balls into the box. Try and capitalise on that. Maybe get a bit of joy. Arteta will realise what's going on. He'll change it up, and then the game will change. But hopefully, it won't change too dramatically this time.
You're a little bit more optimistic than me about Arteta changing things up because he doesn't seem to have much kind of history of doing that in games. Actually, he seems very rigid in what he wants to do, and I don't know, sometimes that's been a problem. He hasn't changed it up when he's needed to. So if he's watched some of your games so far this season and he's realised that's what's been happening, then hopefully he might do something and help us in that case if necessary. But I'm not confident that he will. I think he'll stick with what he started with and just maybe make some like for like changes, is what he tends to do. Dan, what did you make of the performance against Everton then? I say, I thought you actually played pretty well for a lot of that game and then just ran away from you at the end.
This is going to sound very, very silly, really, to say, but the worst thing we could have done was score. And I know that sounds stupid to say, but as soon as we scored, it fired a rocket up at 11 players in Blues' arses. And, as Joe said as well, the game changed. Dash can happily come out and say, yeah, it was a mad 6 minutes or whatever. But it's the fact that there's no plan B. Tactically, we just, it's the same thing. We did it against Everton on Boxing Day, last season or the season before. And, they've got big lads at the back of Everton. They're all 6 foot lads. You've got Michael Keane, you've got Mina. they play. It's just you can't keep trying to pump a ball in all the time. I think we should have started with Vidra in that game, to be honest, just so he could have had that bit of a run on the counter. It just was one of those games where even in the first half, you were sat there. You know, I went down Monday night, and it was like really. You thought you were going to come away with a win. If it was to blow the full, the whistle at half time, you'd have thought we should have won that. And don't even get me started about Everton though. I mean, they were poor for a team that have been, I think, are they unbeaten so far this season?
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they were poor, and it's only when, as Joe stated, Rafa changed things. It opened us up, and
I think Daesh got out tacticked. Like as you're saying there, Rich, like Arteta don't change things, and you mentioned that mad 6-7 minutes, Dan, and Daesh came out and bemoaned it. When that first goal goes in, and if Daesh is not even proactive, if he's reactive to Rafa's changes, and he sees Gomez come on, he sees them get the joy, and he sees them scores a goal, change it straight away. Bring Corky on, take Barnes off, go 4-5-1. That will stop that mad 6 minutes. Because then you've shored up the midfield, and then it turns into a battle again. And when we get into a battle, I'm pretty confident against pretty much most teams.
It's not just that though, Joe, as well. I mean, the substitutions as well are the same.
Exactly, that's what I mean. They're the same.
It's like for like all the time.
He's not even reactive. He's not proactive. It's the same people, the same time. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying bring Corky on, take Barnes off, do something different, change the system. What's Jay going to do? No, don't get me wrong, I like him. What's he going to do? What's Lennon going to do? I just don't. Yeah, there's questions being asked, I think, with Dash's substitutions, but there has been for a long time. I just think the questions are getting louder.
I mean, do you not feel maybe then? I know obviously, Sean Dyche has been at the club for a long time. Do you feel maybe he's getting a little bit stale, and maybe it might benefit the club? I know he's a Burnley legend, isn't he? And he's done great things there. But do you think he's maybe got a bit stale then, perhaps at the club?
Maybe a little bit, but it's not that I'd, as far as I go, I'd say where I want to change. Like maybe it's the start to every season just seems to be the same. It's the start to every season is a slow start. Then we have this big meeting. Then things seems to change. This time there has been positive signs. Like we are playing well in patches in 45 minutes, 2 hours. But I think the problem this time is some of the question marks are over Dash. Like we signed Cornet for 15 million quid and he sat on the bench, and then he's coming out and saying, oh, well, he needs to adapt and learn to the way we play it, which I kind of understand to a certain point. But he's also been playing Champions League football for 3 seasons or whatever. How much does he need to learn? I understand he does need to adapt to Burnley. He does need to know what's needed of him in his role in Burnley. But how long is that going to take? Surely a sit down and a few videos and a few games watched, and he should be ready. But with Dash's comments this week, it sounds like he's probably not going to play till. It's a running joke amongst Burnley fans. Me and Dan have both cracked it. He won't play till Christmas. He needs to be Dash fit. But it needs to change. And sometimes, like I said, these questions this season are about Dash. But I just think I don't think many sane fans want him changed. But a few people, starting to get a bit like, oh, come on, Sean, do this, do that. Stop doing the same thing all the time.
Exactly. And I think as well, to add to Joe's point, that Dash has been screaming for the last couple of weeks about that this new boardroom, this new chairman, etc. They've stretched the budget. We've got numbers in abundance now. We've got the adaptability to change things up, and we can rotate in different areas. And you think, well, how about rotating a tactic? Why are you just sticking to 4-4-2 all the time? The only time he changes it is if it comes up against Man City, and that's just so we don't get beat 5. I mean, we did well last year. We're only 4. So, swings and roundabouts in a way. But yeah, we do need to, I think he does need tactically to, I don't know, be put on a course or something.
It just needs to be more adaptive. It just needs to be more adaptive. It's the same rigid thing every time. And I wouldn't mind it if we started 4-4-2 and then he adapted to suit the game, but it doesn't. We just start 4-4-2 and we go 4-4-2. And as you said, like for like changes. And even if they pack the midfield and we're getting overrun in midfield, it don't do anything about it.
I mean, I've noticed, I was doing a little bit of kind of research on Burnley's form coming into the game, and I think the last 3 games, it's been the same starting 11, hasn't it? So he's not even making changes on a match-to-match basis, is he, from the starting 11? I mean, like you said, you got a bigger squad this season. He's not using it, is he? Is there a reason, do you think, why he's sticking with the same 11 when you've not won a game yet? Just
stubbornness for me. Just stubbornness. Yeah. A few seasons ago, we started off with Joe Hart in goal. He started off okay. But then it soon went south. He was conceding goals, the same goals, not coming out for crosses. When you're a team who sits back and you're saying to teams, right, cross it in, and then your keeper doesn't come out and collect the crosses, it's only going to go one way. Burnley fans were screaming, get Eaton back in goal, get Eaton back in goal. He just didn't do it for ages. And as soon as he changed it to Tom Eaton, the form changed. That just shows like how stubborn he can be. And I've got a sinking feeling it's going to be similar with Barnes this year.
Yeah, he did it last year though, didn't he? He started Wooden Barnes, and it just wasn't working.
As soon as Vidra comes in, it changes. Like every Burnley fan loves Barnes, and I don't like seeing some of the stuff that's said about Barnes on Twitter. But it shouldn't be in the starting 11. It is the wrong side of 30 odd now. I love him.
That age where he's a 10-minute impact player. Yeah, 10-minute impact player at the end.
It'll be a sad day when he leaves, like it was with Oaksy, but it's a similar scenario with Oaksy now. Not good enough. Love him, but not good enough.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's probably a part of it. Like you said, the stubbornness. I mean, I think Arteta's got a little bit of that as well. You know, he's reluctant to change things too much. Last week, of course, he made 7 changes to the starting lineup, which is unusual for any manager to make that many in one kind of league game. But anyway, I mean, I want to obviously look ahead to the game on Saturday. You know, we've generally had a pretty good record away at Burnley over the years. In fact, I was looking the other day, and I think the last 3 times that we've lost at Turf Moor has all been in December, the month of December. So it's not December, so it might be in our favour.
That's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame. Hopefully it gets called off and it gets rearranged for December then.
I mean, I think it was, I think 4 of the last 5 defeats at home or away against Burnley we've had have been in December, but the other one was in September. So there's a little bit of optimism for you. And that was in 1973, I think it was, though. So it's quite a long time ago. But I mean, you know, we do have a decent record there, but the games generally don't have many goals, do they? It's sort of a 1-0, or last season it was a 1-1. There never seems to be that many goals when we play each other. So expecting a similar sort of game again this week, then, Joe. You think it's going to be quite a tight game, or do you think there might be a few more goals this time?
No, I expect it to be tight. I expect most Burnley games to be tight, to be honest. I'll probably never say it's going to be an open, free-flowing game as a Burnley fan when Burnley are playing. But yeah, I don't know. You don't seem to get too much joy against us in terms of goals. So yeah, I'd expect it to be tight again. If we're going for predictions, I'm probably going to go for similar for what I said. Even on here, I think I nailed it on here. Or was it on my own show last season when I said 1-1 at home? I'm going to go for 1-1 again. I think it's going to be tight. I think we'll take the lead again, and then I think we'll get pegged back. It just seems to be that story this season, which is a shame because Burnley is the team that you could hang your hat on and put your house on. If you went 1-0 up, you could say, right, they're winning that match. But this season, and towards the end of last season, it doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, I'm expecting a tight game with a Burnley goal from a set piece, Tarky or Ben Mee, or maybe a Woody header, and then, I don't know, a nice free-flowing Arsenal goal, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be optimistic. I reckon a free-flowing Arsenal goal. We haven't had too many goals at all this season, actually. So it'd be nice to see one again. I mean, what are you expecting, Dan? I mean, it is generally that sort of a game, as Joe's just described. That pretty much sums up the last 5 or 6 times that we've played against you at Turf Moor, really. We tend to just edge them generally with a very scrappy last-minute goal a couple of times that we did. I mean, you expecting that sort of game again? I'm assuming it probably will be like that, won't it, if we're honest?
Yeah, definitely. I think Burnley Arsenal's sort of become like a rivalry in a sense, just because of what's happened over the past couple of years. You know, the last-minute drama, the incidents. You know, it's. But as much as we say about Ashley Barnes and stuff, this is probably a game that what's the word? This would be a strong point, a game like this, because he loves coming up against, you know, him and Xhaka. There's clearly history there. You know, it's got all the meanings of a good, hard-fought, battled game. But either way, it's one of those where there's going to be more battle over the field, and you're still waiting for a victor. A bit like a war. Wars go on for ages until you find a winner, and that's pretty much how it's going to be. Except in football, you only get 90 minutes.
I mean, obviously Barnes has got a great goal scoring record against us, actually. He tends to score virtually every time he plays. But then Aubameyang equally has got a decent record for us against you guys. Of course, last year he scored an own goal, didn't he, when you won at the Emirates, which was nice of him. I mean, Jack is not playing, actually. He's suspended, so he actually won't be playing. So that battle that won't be happening tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, we kind of know what to expect from Burnley. You know, very sort of physical team, I suppose, direct the way that you play, and we've struggled against teams that before quite often, and we did struggle. I think Joe mentioned it before, the Brentford game, first game of the season, we wasn't up for that at all against the physical side, and I've got kind of nightmares that this is going to be very similar to that game actually, and maybe the only thing perhaps in our favour a little bit is which I wanted to touch on now, the fact that I don't think you've won a home game since January. Is that right? I mean, that's a long time, isn't it, without a home game? I mean,
long time.
Is there any sort of reasons that you can think as to why? I know obviously there were no fans in the stadium last season, but it's sort of carried over into this season as well. I mean, is there any sort of thing you can put your finger on as to why your home form's been so poor?
I think last season, you're right about the fans. It probably, we had a better away record than we usually did last season. Again, the no fans, I don't think we win the game at Liverpool with fans there. Probably similar with Arsenal and Everton last season. But this season, I think, yes, we've lost a game at home and drawn a game at home. I think we've been unlucky in both of them games. If Daesh was a reactive manager, then we would have probably won the Arsenal Brighton game on the opening day. And the Leeds game, it was just a fortunate reflection that fell to Bamford. So, yeah, I'm not too worried too much about the home form this season, but I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head with it last season. I think it was a crazy season all around. Burnley winning at places they've not won at since the 50s and stuff, and not really doing very well at home, which they usually do. Yeah,
I mean, it was a strange season in many ways, and I suppose at the end it was the predictable results maybe finally, and where teams finished and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a lot of strange results along the way. I mean, what have you been making of your home form then, Dan? Obviously, you is it like 10 games or something in a row without winning? And I think most of them that you've lost, apart from when you played us and Leeds, where you got a draw. I think you've lost all the others as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of outside fans that are looking in usually think, oh, we don't want to go to Turf Moor. It's like that's it's their church. It's Fortress Turf Moor, as we like to call it. We usually get results left, right, and centre. This season, we sort of started a bit like a Fulham of last year. We're grabbing that goal, but we just can't see it out. And who knows? As Joe hit the nail on the head. The Leeds game was just unlucky. The Brighton game, their first goal was pretty much like someone watching it on Sky, press rewind and press play again for the second. Yeah. They were just carbon copy goals, and it's all about reacting. So yeah, at the Turf, I think we need to do more, especially when we've got fans there, being that 12th man. So something's got to perk up at the Turf anyway, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite surprising actually, because like you said, I mean, Burnley's always been considered a difficult place for teams to go because of the sort of game that you get, and it's never easy. And I still don't think it is easy, but for some reason, teams have managed to go there and pick up results, haven't they, for the last sort of 8-9 months this year? Certainly, it has been strange and not something that we'd have been expecting. I mean, what have you guys made of the way Arsenal have started the season? Obviously, we lost our first 3 games without scoring. We kind of scraped past Norwich last weekend. Would you think that maybe it's not a bad time to be playing us? Although we have, of course, got a lot of our injured players back now. We should have a fairly sort of strong side to choose from this week, as we did against Norwich. What have you been making of Arsenal then, Joe, so far?
Yeah, well, I watched the first game. Obviously, it was the first game of the season altogether, wasn't it? I think it was on Friday night. So I did watch that one. I remember thinking, like, Jesus Christ, these are very poor this season. I'm going to be brutally honest. Chelsea and City, you've lost against 2 very, very good sides who, in my opinion, are going to be battling out for the top of the championship. It's going to be one of them 2. The Norwich one, I just think it was a case of backs against the wall, get the win, start your season, go from here. So, yes, you scrape past them, and you probably would have expected to get past them a bit easier than that. But I just think it was back to basics, get the win, and then maybe kick on from there. Because some Burnley fans probably won't enjoy me saying this, but as an Arsenal fan, you look at them 2 games and you think, right, we should be getting 6 points there. So let's minimum get the 3 points and then go to Turf Moor and then try and get the 6. But I think it's an okay time to be playing you because you might be getting some of your players back, but they need to get they need to get the games in, they need to get the fitness back and things like that. So they'll still be a little bit rusty. We've seen that you can be exploited against Brentford, so hopefully we'll try and do something similar. So yeah, I think it's a good time to play. But it's going to be a good game. Like I said, I think it'll be a tight one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it will be tight, and I think you're right about some of the players. I mean, Gabriel last week, that was his first game of the season. We had the new Japanese defender, Tomiyasu, that was his first game as well. So you're not sure how they're going to be ready for a game away at Burnley so quickly, having got back into the team. That's always a question still. I mean, Ben White's only played the one game against Brentford before. He didn't do particularly well, did he, against a physical striker that night? So, he's going to have to obviously improve his performance on Saturday against obviously Chris Wood, who's a big lad of physical presence as well. And obviously, if Barnes plays, we know what he's like. So, I mean, what have you made of Arsenal so far, Dan, this season? Obviously, not the start that we was expecting or maybe hoping for, really. But yeah, a couple of difficult games. But it's more about the fact we didn't compete in those two games. We probably didn't expect to win them, but to get turned over as easily as we did was quite sort of not really what we would have wanted or hoped for, really, out of those two games. I mean, what you made of Arsenal?
I think it's difficult. You look at it and you look at the transfer window and you being the team in the Premier League that spent the most money, and you think, right, okay, do they now have to believe in Arteta and a rebuilding process? Do they have to give it a few more years and see if it sort of pays off? But I think you've had enough years of Arteta trying to do something, trying to make a plan go. And for me, ultimately, this is Arteta's final chance. If they're going to back him with that sort of money and he can't get them playing, I'm sorry, mate, but whether you were a second fiddle to Guardiola, you're not that calibre of manager. So it's a tough one. Depending on how things go, depending where you are at Christmas, Arteta could be, one of the gaffers to be chopped at the start of the new year.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that. I agree with you. I think he's had plenty of time. People were saying, we'd only had 3 games this season and we'd lost them all, but he's had 18 months before that and hasn't really improved the team. And the club have backed him, as you said, so they're probably not going to sack him now. And I think even if we'd lost to Norwich and even if we'd lost to you guys as well, I still don't think they would have sacked him, just because they've just invested all that money in the players that apparently he wanted. So it is a difficult one, actually. I mean, we had, obviously, you've had Sean Dyche a long time. We had Arsene Wenger a long time. And when you change, it's quite difficult, isn't it? I mean, we've struggled since Wenger when, the club's gone backwards. I guess that would probably be a worry for you guys, wouldn't it? If I know you obviously you don't necessarily want Dyche to go, but if at some point he's probably going to leave the club or they're going to get rid of him or whatever's going to happen, do you think that it's going to be, you might find it difficult for that transition to happen? Because, it's tough, isn't it, when a manager's been there a long time and his players are there and all that kind of stuff? I mean, do you think is that a worry, Joe, if Dyche was to go anytime soon?
For me, if Dyche goes, we are, up the creek without a paddle, so to speak. But it's. I remember when Stan left, it was a similar scenario when Stan Turner left in 2006, 2004.
Yeah.
Can't remember, a long time ago that now. Cotterill came in and he did okay, but he never really did anything.
Cotterill was almost like a Roy Hodgson, weren't he? Sort of steadied the ship.
Steadied the ship, and then after that, I think it was Eddie Howe, wasn't it? And then obviously Dyche. But Dyche is even more now of a legend in my eyes than Stan. We've done so much more under Dyche. It's just everything about Burnley Football Club, in my eyes, epitomises Dyche. Like just the way we play, the way the club's run. He has a lot of says in transfers and things like that. He chooses, obviously, the transfers that are brought in and things. You don't really get stuff like that at other clubs. The tackles that we put in, you see Dyche doing them when he was playing. It's just all about Dyche. So if a completely different manager came in now, and we went down the foreign manager route or something like that, or even went back to Eddie Howe and went into that sort of play, it would just be an absolute catastrophe. The only way that we could do it is another steady in the ship manager, or a manager that isn't that different. So somebody like Wilder, he is the only person that I would be like, okay, let's give it a go. If he came in now, if Dyche left tonight, he's the only person. Everyone else, I'd be like, oh, it's too different. So yeah, I think if Dyche leaves, it's going to be one hell of a few years, I think, for Burnley. It'll be just like consolidation for a few years, sort of like rebranding the entire club. That is so much about Dyche ingrained into this club. It'll be very difficult for anyone to succeed in.
We had it with Kyle as well, though, didn't we? We had it when Kyle were here as well. We had that belief. Everyone around the place were buzzing, the promotion, etc. And then obviously what he did, is what he did. And then we sort of brought in Brian Laws, and it was just like, obviously at the time we were a different kettle of fish. We haven't got the backing that we have now. It was a case of just get anyone in, and see how we get on. But even from there, it took us a while to try and get to where we needed to be, and sort of where we are now, we want to keep that going. And people can say that, okay, eventually we need to look higher than what we're achieving. And people may say, okay, well, is Dash now a manager that's sort of steadying the ship? Well, no, not really. He's keeping the club there, but he's now being tested and given the chance to splash a bit more money and show a little bit more. But I think he needs to show a bit more, not just the players on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, I think we had a similar issue, like I said, with Wenger. Like as Joe said, he was really ingrained in the whole club, and he was making a lot of decisions in terms of transfers and everything else. And we've struggled to really to regain an identity really since Wenger left. And I do feel that there's not many managers these days that last at a club long enough to stamp their real personality and everything on a club. Obviously, Wenger did, Fergie did, and I think, as you said, Sean Dyche has as well at Burnley, hasn't he? He's almost the only manager left in the Premier League at the moment where he's totally that club, isn't he? Any other team you could think they can change manager and it's not going to really make a lot of difference. But with Burnley, you can see that, as Joe said, I totally agree with that. Burnley is Sean Dyche, isn't it, at the moment? And it has been. Yeah. It'd be difficult to imagine the club without him, I suppose. But inevitably, managers do end up moving on, don't they, for one reason or another. And
it's like, could you imagine Sean Dyche on a touchline wearing a different colour tie? Like every time you see Dyche, he's wearing a claret blue tie or a tie with a Burnley crest. No. Could you imagine like a little, I don't know, Leicester crest or Everton crest? It would not suit him. A blue tie wouldn't suit him. So Sean, if you're listening, blue doesn't suit you, mate. Neither does red. Neither does yellow. And white as well. It doesn't suit you. Just claret, mate.
He'll end up at Aston Villa or West Ham then, won't he? That'll be it.
Yeah, he will.
But no, I mean, I do think that it's probably he's the only manager in the Premier League at the moment that's really got, maybe Pep's perhaps another one, but I'm not sure if even that's the same at Man City, that really epitomises the whole club as a manager. And it's good. Inevitably, it can lead to problems later on when they do leave, because you're left with someone else who's got to come in and try and recapture that, and it's difficult. I say we've not managed to do it. Man United have struggled since Fergie went, and it's really tough, isn't it? And unfortunately, it is a problem that you have to look at, I guess, when you've got a manager, because most managers don't last more than 2 years, do they? And then they're out, and they haven't got a chance to stamp themselves on the club in that way. So most clubs don't get an opportunity, but I suppose really, you're saying you can't imagine Dyche being at another club. It's difficult to imagine Burnley without Dyche there, when you play against them, because every time Burnley's mentioned now, you automatically think of Sean Dyche, you automatically think of the style of play that Burnley have got, a bit like maybe you used to do with Stoke and Tony Pulis, maybe a little bit. It was the whole club kind of epitomised what the manager's ideas were, really, which is quite unusual. But I mean, what I really wanted to look at really was as Burnley fans, obviously you're sort of talking before about possibly aiming higher, maybe. I mean, what are your realistic expectations for Burnley? Obviously you've established yourself in the Premier League now. You've been in the Premier League for the last few seasons. You generally maybe fighting against relegation most of the time. You did get in Europe one season not that long ago. I mean, what are your sort of expectations as a Burnley fan for where you think the club should be aiming for?
It's a difficult one, because I understand the limitations that are upon us from the size of the club and things like that. But also, I don't just want to be the type of club that is just happy to make up the numbers. I want to be fighting in the Premier League for top half finishes. I want to be fighting on, competition fronts, doing well in the FA Cup, doing well in the League Cup. We've got a decent chance to do okay in the League Cup. Obviously, we got past Newcastle at St James's in the second round as Premier League clubs join it. We're playing Rochdale at home in the next round, but we've been in this position so many times. Like, we get past... Who did we get past last season in the second round? Sheffield United. And then I can't remember who we played in the third round, but it was a lower league club, and we got beat. This tends to be the thing. But I think we are punching above our weight, which is a term that I hate. I cannot stand it, because you're there on merit. But I think we are punching above our weight in terms of club size. So can I really sit here and realistically say something like, we should be doing X, Y, and Z, for example? But yeah, I'd like to see us establish ourselves further as a Premier League club? Because we seem to have gone like the south a little bit now. Like people were like, oh yeah, Burnley, a Premier League club, like done well the last few years. But it's like, oh come on, you know, you're 17th last season. It's time you went down this season. So I want to like re-establish yourselves and then maybe start doing well in some of the cup competitions as well. I think it's time we took the cup competition seriously. But to do that, you need a squad, and we've started building a squad this summer rather than just a first 11, but it's going to take more than one transfer window after several transfer windows of neglect.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're probably right, really. I mean, I suppose from an outsider's point of view, it does feel a little bit as though Burnley have stagnated over the last couple of seasons. You know, you did have that great season a few years ago where, you know, you got into Europe, you're up there, you're beating big teams, and you seem to have dropped down from there and stagnated a little bit. I mean, well, what do you think the expectations are then, Dale, or should be for Burnley fans realistically now? What would you like to see? What direction would you like to see the club sort of move forward in now, really? Because like you said, I do feel as though you haven't really progressed at all really in the last couple of years, certainly.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now where we should be quite a bit like a Stoke, a bit of a staple in the Premier League at the time. You know, I think we should now be trying to hit those hearts of 13th, 14th, maybe, you know, and making that a solid position. You know, Leicester have made 5th their position for the last God knows how many years. Why can't we, you know, be happy with a solid mid-table finish? You know, I expect a little team like us to be, you know, battling and fighting hard, you know, game in, game out. I think that's what I love about being a Burnley fan, that you don't just walk to the ground expecting a result. You know, you sort of, you go there, you're optimistic, you've got that little belief that you can get a result. It's always going to be difficult, no matter who we come up against. But yeah, I'd love to see us in a solid mid-table position and not constantly like fighting till the death. Which obviously, if last season taught us anything, you know, this season should have been the kick up the arse.
I mean, do you think the club and the people that own the club have got that sort of ambition, or do you think they just want to survive in the Premier League, and do you think that's their ambition, or do you actually think they've got more long-term ambitions for the club? So, like you said, maybe establish yourself as a mid-table club or top 10 Premier League club. I mean, I say you've been in the Premier League long enough now, haven't you, really, to look at that? You don't just want to just survive every season, do you? Because, you know, that's not really enough, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, did you think the club have got those ambitions, Joe? The owners of the club and people like that, or do you think it's more just the fans want that?
No, I think the new owners do. I think they've come in and you know, they've said all the right things. And there was a little bit of a debate about, oh well, you know, they're going to walk the walk, but they're talking the talk, but can they walk the walk? A few people were criticising them before they'd even had a chance to do anything. And now they've done it. You know, we bought Collins for 12 million. We bought Cornet for 15 million. That's just unheard of as a Burnley fan. I think the old board would have been happy just to stay in the Premier League because it's a healthy balance sheet at the end of the day. So that's all the old board were bothered about. I think the new board, you know, they've got plans for the town. They've got plans for the stadium, as far as I'm hearing. So, yeah, I don't think they'd just be happy to stay in the Premier League if that's... I think that'll obviously be the main aim because of the loans that they've used to buy the club and the money that they spent on players. But I do think... I think a lot of the ambition with the new owners is to make Burnley more marketable in just not in Burnley, because Burnley's, you know, this big thing in Burnley. It's such a massive part of the town and the community. But away from Burnley, people just don't really care. Maybe, you know, some people dotted around the country will be like, oh, yeah, got a soft spot for Burnley, a decent community club. But you go anywhere in Spain, America, you know, all these places where the Premier League expands to, and they're like, oh, yeah, I hope you get relegated, or they don't even know who you are. So I think the point of that is, you know, just to make Burnley not a worldwide name, but like a more marketable name, probably more so in America because that's where the new owners are from. And then hopefully from there comes more money, comes more investment, and then comes more success. But you know, it's easy said than done, obviously.
No, it is. But I mean, I suppose if the owners have got ambitions for the club, then that's a good sign, because they'll be aware that to fulfill those ambitions, you have to invest money in the team and everything else and the infrastructure around it. I mean, I suppose the stadium could perhaps do with a little bit of work as well. That stand on where used to be where the tunnel used to be. They've moved it over there, but that sort of smaller stand that could do with a bit of work. I think the away stand perhaps could do with some work on it as well. The wooden seats and stuff like that. So it's a great away day, but I think the stadium perhaps needs a bit of work as well. But yeah, I mean, if you've got the owners that have got the ambition, then there's no reason why it can't eventually be fulfilled, I guess. I mean, in a way, sometimes, I'm kind of envious of fans like yourselves who support maybe a smaller club, because it's like you said before, Dan, that the expectations that you have on a game-to-game basis are probably not as high as, say, for example, Arsenal fans have got, because we've had a lot of success as well. It's almost like anything other than a good victory in most games feels like a disappointment. And even, when we beat some of the big teams, it doesn't maybe feel the same as it would, say, if you was to beat Manchester City, for example, or Liverpool or Chelsea. It would be almost like winning a cup final, wouldn't it? That's the excitement that you would get as fans. And I think that's kind of a good thing, really. And although it's nice sometimes to support a bigger club, because, you might see yourself win a trophy every now and again, that excitement, I don't think it's the same, is it? And I think that being a smaller club has actually got a lot of positives if you can obviously survive in the Premier League. I mean, I suppose that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Playing at that level. But it must have been an exciting time for you guys to be Burnley fans over the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years.
I'll admit completely.
Sorry, go on,
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think success is relative anyway. Like for Arsenal, obviously, success is winning stuff because that's what you're used to. For us to see Burnley win the Championship and go 23 games undefeated, that will mean more to us than, the next Premier League trophy will to Man City, because, they've already done it 3-4 times. If we went down and won Championship, went down, won Championship, went down, we wouldn't be that arsed. But it's all relative, isn't it? And it's the same thing that you're saying, like, yeah, we do get more excitement out of beating City than what you will, for example. But, you can hit them levels of excitement in your own ways, which is for you winning trophies. No,
exactly, yeah, and you're right. It is relative, but in a way, having that less pressure, maybe you're not as Burnley as a club, and you as a fan base, you probably don't go into games with that same sort of pressure on expectation of
no, not in this league.
Yeah, so and I think that makes a maybe difference to how the fans feel about. Obviously, we're in a bad situation at the moment for us, but for you guys, the situation that you're in is probably you're probably not feeling the same way about your league position currently as we are, because the expectations, as you said, are completely different for both clubs, aren't they? And you probably expect that you'll survive anyway, because you have done for the last few years. We're not worried about relegation necessarily, but it's not about that, is it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Dave? Obviously, you was gonna say something like this before.
Yeah, it's just going back a couple of years, even under Steve Cottrell, the flirting around sort of. Before Christmas, we were up there and thereabouts, and it was the same understanding as well. We were always doing pretty well, and then after Christmas, arse would fall out. We'd sort of, it's like we'd been on piss, and everybody's rough for the rest of the season, and it sort of followed that trend for a couple of years, and it was almost like you ask questions of, is that done on purpose? Do we not want to get promoted? What's going on? It happens that time every year. And I honestly turned to my mate, I think it was in about 2007, 2008. And I said, oh, you know what? We won't go up. We won't go up. I'd love to see Burnley in the Premier League in my lifetime. That's what I said. And then obviously in 2009, I didn't have to wait much longer. And then we actually achieved it. But that's the sort of thing that you get as a fan of Burnley. You've been that team that's always been a staple of the Championship. You've always been that mid-table Championship club, and then all of a sudden, we hit another level. And now we've got to get to that level again. We've got to hit that next one and keep putting a notch on and keep notching it up every time, ramp it up a little bit. But obviously, you need the class on the pitch to do that. You need the correct tactics, knowing what to do, how to change your game, etc. But yeah, as I say, seeing, as Joe said, the 23 games unbeaten, just seeing Burnley in a European logo were just, madness, absolute madness. And it was just proper Burnley to get Aberdeen. It was just one of those things. But yeah, we go again this season, and fingers crossed we can do a Burnley where we sort of have that one win and then capitalise on that and have a bit of a run.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, it is right what what Joe says, the expectations and stuff like that. And I think that makes a massive difference, doesn't it, to how you perceive the situation that you're in. I mean, obviously I don't remember it myself, but Burnley have won the league championship. They've reached FA Cup finals, and in historically, obviously one of the founder members of the Football League as well. So historically, Burnley are a big club, aren't they? And I know it's been a long time since those sort of days, if you like, sort of 50, 60 years ago, whenever it was. But ultimately, Burnley have got a history, haven't they, of in English football, and a good, rich history as well. More than a lot of
Exactly.
more than a lot of clubs, and I think that's important as well. But ultimately, I suppose in more recent years, I can also remember Burnley in the 4th division applying for re-election to the league. Finishing in the bottom 2 or 3 in the Football League. So it's kind of gone. You've experienced, Burnley fans. Older Burnley fans and you guys would have experienced that highs and lows, wouldn't they, throughout their time, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to keep that perspective, really. And I think, it's difficult sometimes, especially for a club like Arsenal in a situation that we've been in. It's difficult to sometimes keep that kind of perspective, really. And that's why, I think that the Premier League was supposed to be, and then you had that European Super League business last year. It's almost like big clubs seem to think they've got some entitlement to be in the Premier League and to be there. Whereas to me, football's all about clubs like Burnley. It's all about those other clubs, like you said, you mentioned Stoke before, and clubs like being in the Premier League and competing at that level. That's what it should be about, shouldn't it? That should be embraced. And I don't think it is enough. I don't think, there's a lot of, I feel there's a lot of clubs in the Premier League that would be quite happy if clubs like Burnley and Brentford and the clubs that were never in the Premier League, because that wasn't what they felt the Premier League was built for. And I think that's wrong, because, football at the top level, it's great. It's a great story, isn't it? For you guys, real fans that have, seen the club down in the Championship and whatever, to experience what you've experienced now, even though it's a struggle every season at the minute, it still must be. It's probably a good time, isn't it, to be a Burnley fan, if you're honest, with we're looking at the history of the club.
If you look back at mine and Dan's lifetime, I presume Dan's around a similar age than me, just a little bit younger, probably.
I'm only 30.
But I were growing up when Burnley were in, my first memories of Burnley and being in Division 2. I remember them get promoted briefly in 94, 95, or was it 93, 94? I think it was 94, 95, but then they went straight back down. And then they were just in the 2nd division for a few years, then into what is now the Championship, but it was Division 1 at the time, and just stayed there, as Dan said, until 2009, when we just managed to notch it up to that next level. And then obviously we went back down again. But then where we are now, in the Premier League for what is now the 4th year. And we've been in Europe. As Dan said, when I was growing up, it was a case of I would just love to see Burnley in the Premier League. And then you get to the Premier League, and then obviously your aim's reset. You're like, right, well, I want to see Burnley beat the big boys. And obviously at the time it was United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea. And I've seen them do all that now. I've seen him in Europe. Even at when you've seen your club do all these things and then you've reset the level again. My aim was never, I want to see Burnley in Europe, because it just never seemed fathomable. I've messed that word up, I know I have, but it just never seemed possible. And then it was something that'll live with me forever, and I can't wait to tell my little boy about it when he understands it a bit more. That I went to Olympiacos to watch Burnley Football Club playing a European game. It's just from where we were when me and Dan were kids. That is mental. That if that happened on Football Manager, you'd be like, reset it, start it again, load of rubbish.
Of course you would.
It's insane, and it is the best time in the last 20 years to be a Burnley fan is the past 5 years, definitely. The past 40 years.
Well, it's not just that though, Joe. We've also, we've gone from, as you said, we're playing Olympiacos. Back when we were younger, we were playing teams like Boston United that aren't even around anymore. Borough in the league and stuff like that. And you're just thinking, I've got programs with pictures of David Ayres on and stuff like that. And
legend.
You're going back years and years, and you just think, wow, how far we have pushed on. Yeah. It's mad as a fan. And to be honest, sat here thinking about it now, it's made me realise that these couple of results that we've had at the start of the season aren't half as bad as I was thinking, to be honest. As long as we don't keep this trend up until the end of the season, because then we'll be buggered. But at the moment, let's not worry. It's still early doors. Let's change a few things.
I can't remember where that said it, but they said adapt or die, and that's pretty much what we need to do. Otherwise, it's down in the gutter. As I've already said, last season should have taught us a few things that, we can't just rest on having the fans behind us. We need more than that. And Dash coming out and saying a mature squad, yeah, it's mature. It's been around the Premier League for a while, but it's mature because it's been there for too long. It's like you leave a mature cheese out for long enough, it starts smelling. You know what I mean? You've got to change it. You chuck it, and that's what needs to happen. We need to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd say, it does seem as though maybe the club have gone a little bit stale in the last couple of years and not moved on. But it's still a great story for football, isn't it? When a club like Burnley having the problems that you'd had a few years ago and down in the depths of the Football League as you were, and to be back in the Premier League, it is a good story for football. And it's almost like you remember the days of Wimbledon when they came up through and won the FA Cup and stuff like that. And it's that romance from football's kind of been, those sort of stories don't happen very often these days because of the money that's involved. So when a club like Burnley and Brentford at the moment, in the Premier League and stuff like that, it's kind of good for the romance of football, I think, and it makes football all the better for it. Even though I say a lot of people don't want clubs like Burnley in the Premier League, do they?
I think people just get fed up of the story though. Eventually, like when we first came up, everyone loved us. They're like, "Oh, Burnley in the Premier League, amazing."
The same with Blackpool, weren't it?
Exactly, we've been here for 5 years now. Obviously, Blackpool went straight back down. We've been here for 5 years now. People just get fed up of it. I remember a Sheffield United fan a couple of years ago saying, "Oh, everyone's just been so nice to us, mate, because we're doing so well in the Premier League and stuff." Like, just you wait, pal. If you stay up 3-4 years, they'll all hate you. Obviously, they didn't end up staying up. Obviously, they did for one season, went straight back down. But people just get bored of that story and then they don't like it anymore. It'd be the same for Brentford. If Brentford stay up this season, everyone will be singing the praises, brilliant. They then stay up for 3-4 years, they won't want them in the Premier League because they're not big enough.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, actually. I mean, I personally, I kind of like that romance of some of the smaller clubs being in the Premier League. Bournemouth, in the Premier League for a long time before and stuff like that. It's good for football. It's good for fans, isn't it? Because the fans of those clubs have been through a lot of bad times, haven't they? And to experience some great times as well, it's deserved, isn't it? It's deserved for everyone at the club, and no one should feel that they shouldn't be there. You're there. You're in the Premier League on merit, aren't you? In there because you've deserved your place to be in there, and you've deserved your place every year to stay up. And whether people like the way Burnley play or not is a different matter. Maybe you can perhaps understand some people don't like the style of play, possibly. But ultimately, that's not that's nothing to do with the fans, is it? You as fans deserve to see the club where you are. You deserve to make the most of it as well where you're here. And it's a good away trip, Burnley, as well, isn't it? It's one of the best away trips of the season. It's a nice little ground.
That's another reason why I get bewildered that we get criticised so much.
Yeah.
I've never been an away fan at Turf Moor, I know that, but I've never been to an away ground that is so accommodating to how I see Turf Moor accommodating you guys. You've got the cricket field behind you. You can all just drink and spill out on pitch and have a chat with us all. That's why it bewilders me so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the best away days in the Premier League, actually, Burnley, I think, personally, for me. I think it's great. It's great. And yeah, I mean, more clubs like that are needed. You go to a lot of these grounds now, some of the bigger clubs, and it's not like that at all. It's very, I don't know, the whole thing doesn't, it's maybe a bit stale because they, you don't feel a part of it. Whereas at Burnley, maybe because it's a smaller club, you do feel a part of it. Like you said, you've got the cricket club at the back and all that kind of stuff. And it's a good atmosphere there. And yeah, I think the away stand could do with being redeveloped possibly. But, other than that, I think it's a great away day. And it's, Burnley have been good for the Premier League. I personally think, I know not everyone agrees and that's fair enough, but I kind of like clubs like that being there and I think it's fully deserved as well. So let's hope that, you can recover from your poor start to the season and push yourselves up the league a little bit, and hopefully we'll be going in the same direction as well. But something's going to have to give this weekend, isn't it? We've only had one win. You haven't had any wins yet. We're not scoring many goals, are we? So something's going to happen perhaps on Saturday. Either we're going to come away with a victory, or maybe it might be what kickstarts your season. It's fun, isn't it? But when you haven't won at home for such a long time and we're coming as the next visitors, it kind of makes me worry that will be the team that you'll beat at home, just because that tends to happen to us quite a lot when we go on these kind of playing teams that are on a bad run and they play us. It's like teams want to play us on a bad run because it's a good chance to get a victory. I mean, I know you sort of were predicting a draw, but I mean, do you think that maybe you I know you haven't beaten us at home for quite a long time. In fact, never in the Premier League that I'm aware of. do you think that it's a possibility that, with how we've been playing, that this is maybe a good opportunity for you to actually get a win over us that's not in December?
I think so. I said that earlier. I don't mean any disrespect to Arsenal, but when I look at the way the game against Brentford panned out, I think that if the game goes like that and you are struggling with balls into the box and physical players, then that just suits us all day long. So if the game gets into one of them battles, which we can turn games into, and then we put balls into the box, then it'll work in our favour. Whether or not you've learnt from that Brentford game, and then you can then or learn from the past few years of playing us, and Arteta knows like a new way to play against us, then who knows? But if it goes the same way as that Brentford game and turns into a battle, and we can get balls into the box, whereas your defenders will struggle to deal with them, then that, like I said, it'll work in our favour. That.
I mean, Arteta actually has got a very poor record against Burnley. I think it's two draws and a defeat in the 3 games that he's been in charge. I think a 0-0 draw and a 1-1 draw at Turf Moor, and obviously that game last season at the Emirates when you won 1-0. So he maybe hasn't learned previously from the previous games, because we still don't seem to be able to beat you under Arteta. And last season's game at Turf Moor was an example of that. We scored early, should have been 3 or 4-0 up, and then made a silly mistake, conceded a goal, and in the end we maybe was hanging on a bit for a draw, weren't we? And Arteta he isn't very adaptable, and he doesn't seem to be able to. I can see Sean Dyche. He doesn't change his tactics very often, does he? He goes with us, like you said, the 4-4-2, gets the ball forward, but he'll know Arsenal's weaknesses because he would have studied it, and he'll know how to play against Arsenal, won't he? Because he's played against Arsenal a lot of times before as well. Whereas Arteta, I've got the feeling that he will approach this game the same as he would have approached every other game, with the same mindset to it. He's not going to adapt. When sometimes, I think that's why we struggled against Brentford. It's almost like he'd never seen Brentford play before. And I know they've just come up, but you can watch the games. It's not, we all knew how Brentford were going to play, and it seemed like Arteta didn't. We all know how Burnley are going to play, and it seems like from previous meetings Arteta doesn't. And that's my worry for Saturday, that he's not going to adapt the team for the challenge that we're going to face. It's almost like he's going to say, right, we're going to play our way, and we should be better than Burnley because we've got better players. But it doesn't work like that. That's not how football is. Football is about adapting to the opposition and finding a way to beat them. And that's what worries me. I mean, do you think it's a good opportunity for you, Dan, maybe to finally beat us at Turf Moor when it's not snowing?
Why not? Why not? I mean, based on our performances so far this season, the Brighton game, I can understand. But the performance that we put in at Liverpool, I said to everyone after that, I said, okay, it was Liverpool, we got beat, but the performance side of things was great, and if we kept that up, that'll win us points. Obviously against Everton, we sort of played very similar in that aspect. I thought we were on the front foot. So who knows, if we do keep playing like we did, take the game to you instead of just sitting back. Our downfall is that when we get that goal, we sit on it, and so sometimes a fox will chase a hen out of its pen, and that's what we don't want to happen. We want to sit firm. If we do sit firmly on it, we need to keep hold of it. But I think Burnley have been a different kettle of fish this, back end of last season, this season, started to play a bit more on the front foot. But you need someone like Vidra up there with Wood for that to work. Having 2 big lumps up top just doesn't help. And it's getting to a point now where when them two are playing together, you're hearing people saying, they're a top-end championship strike force. But I don't know. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm feeling optimistic this Saturday. Unfortunately, I won't be there as I'm on a Pendle pub walk this weekend. But that, I suppose in a way, if we win, I can celebrate by going to the next pub and having a beer. If not, I go to the next pub and consolidate. So, win-win.
Happy days either way, I suppose. But I mean, talking about that game against Liverpool, actually, I mean, you were quite unlucky, weren't you? You was like 1-0 down. You had a few chances, didn't you, to get a goal, and we could have changed that game there, couldn't it? So I kind of agree. I think you've been playing probably better than your results have necessarily reflected so far. So I suppose that's a reason for you to be optimistic about Saturday. Whereas we've probably got what we've deserved out of the season so far, which was 3 defeats from 3 really poor performances, and then a victory against a really, I wouldn't say a poor Norwich team, but a Norwich team that lacked enough quality really, and I think they're going to struggle, aren't they? So, I mean, in terms of the season, and before we finish, what are your sort of expectations for you guys this season, and what do you think, the relegated teams are going to be? Joe, start with you. What's your sort of expectation for Burnley for the season, first of all, and then who do you think is going to get relegated?
I think expectations now, I want to improve on last season. I think we've added decent quality to the squad now, so we should improve on last season. I think Norwich will go. I just don't see the point in Norwich coming up, to be honest, and I don't mean that in a harsh way. I know we've just gone through all that. Like Burnley, we deserve to be there and all that, but every time they come up to the Premier League, they don't even fight. They don't do anything. That's my problem with Norwich. They're here on merit, and I respect that, and fair play to them, but give it a go. Like, they just come up, go down without a whimper. You barely even know they're there. And I like Norwich fans as well. They're one of the only fans that don't cry on Twitter when we play them. So I actually like them being in the Premier League. I think Newcastle are going to struggle, I think this could be Newcastle's year, but I think that's going to be too bold of a prediction. So I'm just gonna put Watford in there instead. And even though I've just said that's a bit of a bold prediction, I might do another bold prediction here and say Southampton. I think Brentford are going to get dragged back into it, and I do think Brentford could go, but I think they'll ride on the crest of a wave for a while, and that will ultimately see them have enough points to stay up at the end of the season, like Huddersfield did a few years ago. So I think they'll stay up. I'd like to see either Southampton or Newcastle go down. Got nothing against either club. It's just always a good story when a bigger club goes down. I'm going to predict Southampton. So I'm going to go Norwich, Watford, and Southampton, with Burnley finishing hopefully at around 15th, 14th.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Brentford, actually. I think their problem is going to be scoring enough goals, isn't it? I know they've had a decent start. They're quite solid defensively, but are they going to score enough goals? And I agree that kind of momentum from being promoted only lasts so long, and eventually the lack of quality, maybe in depth of the squad, might well prove to be, a problem for them. I mean, what about yourself, Dan? What's your expectations for Burnley, and who do you think is going to go down?
Well, expectations for Burnley, I'm going for exactly the same as Joe. 15th, 14th, 13th, around that area. I'll be extremely happy. He's hit the nail on the head, really, by saying, how we've brought in some decent quality in positions that were needed. I feel like we've been we need a pacey forward, in my opinion. I think we've been screaming out for one since the likes of Ings and Gray. Having that sort of little and large with like Wood and a nippy striker, I think would be really good. But it is what it is. I would take, as I say, I'd take 15th, 14th, 13th. But for me, going down, I've got to say, obviously, Joe again hit the nail on the head. Norwich and Watford are dead. And I'm going to throw in a surprise package here. I'm going to say Wolves.
Really?
I think Wolves under Lager aren't going to be the same monster they were. I think there's a couple of injuries there, and I think they'll be knee deep in the shit, to be fair.
Yeah, I do think Wolves will struggle, to be honest. I do think they'll struggle. It's a good shout, that.
I mean, I think they've been playing quite well, actually. I know they wasn't getting any results. They obviously got their first win at the weekend against Watford, but I don't know. I kind of think they've been playing quite well, and they've got some good players. And I don't know. I don't think they're going to do as well as they maybe have done, but I'll be amazed if they went down. I think there's a lot worse teams than them in the Premier League.
I think they'll have enough.
The only reason I say Wolves
to stay up. Sorry, Dan, go on.
No, the only reason I say Wolves is because Southampton every single season, no matter what, just end up plucking results out from nowhere. And even with the squad, prior to a ball being kicked this season, I'd have said Southampton they're gone. The fact that they lost big key hitting players, defender, left back, the striker. All they had going for them really was Ward-Prowse. And to be honest, it's a difficult one for Southampton because they can either it could make them sink or swim. And at the moment they sort of ride in that wave, a bit like Denmark did. They lost Eriksen, they lost their that creative spark in midfield, but they rallied and got to where they did. Now, I think Southampton may do that and may get a few surprising results along the way. A lot of people said Palace might have been gone. But they've started pretty well. I think no matter what, a lot of teams have put some money behind them this season, including ourselves, for a change. And it's going to be interesting, that bottom half. It's definitely going to be interesting. You're going to see teams that you thought, shouldn't be there, will be in it. And that's the only reason why I'd put Wolves there over Southampton and something like that.
No, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, actually, I was maybe more kind of wanting to sort of talk about who's going to be relegated as opposed to who's going to win the Premier League, because I agree with you. I think the bottom half of the league is a lot more interesting, and it's going to be even more interesting this season perhaps than in previous seasons, because of the fact that, like you said, most clubs have improved, haven't they? They spent money and they've improved their squads from last season, and I think it's going to be very tight at the bottom, actually. I do think Norwich are probably as Joe said, they seem to come up and go. They're a bit like West Brom do the same, don't they? They just come straight up and go straight back down again. It is almost pointless them coming up if that's going to be what they're doing. But I'm sure they don't want to go back down again. But yeah, I think it's going to be very tight. Actually, there's probably 7 or 8, 9 clubs even that you could look at and give an argument for them going down, couldn't you? You mentioned Southampton, Wolves. We spoke about Watford, Brentford possibly getting sucked in. I guess even you guys will be in that part of the table. I mean, I don't think yours will go down. Personally, I think there's a lot worse teams around, but I do think it's going to be tight this year. I actually think that the relegation side is going to be a lot more exciting to watch, as opposed to the top 4 or 5, which is so predictable these days, isn't it? Probably more so than ever now. When you look at the top 4 teams from last year, how they've improved their team for this year, they've just got further and further away. And it's like, Leicester are probably going to win the second Premier League, which is after the top 4, and the rest of it, they're going to probably come top of that again, aren't they? And then, it's predictable there. But when you get to like 10th, 11th in the league, you look down, you don't know who's going to beat anybody. I mean, I was looking at the fixtures this weekend, and apart from Man City at home to Southampton and Liverpool at home to Crystal Palace, you look at all the other games, they could go either way. You look at them and it's difficult to call, because they're teams that not much to choose between them. And that's half the Premier League's like that now, which is good. It's just a shame it's not in the top half as well, isn't it? Half the league's unpredictable. The other half is probably a little bit too predictable, but we'll see what happens anyway. And let's hope that Saturday's a good game anyway. 3 o'clock kickoff as well, which for us is quite unusual. We've had 2 in a row now, which without being in Europe, I suppose it's we're going to maybe get a few more this season. But yeah, I mean, let's hope it's a good game, and let's hope the best team wins, as long as it's obviously not Burnley, because that would be a bit of a disaster from our point.
If we're the best team on the day, you'll change it. You'll be the best team. That's what happens when we're the best team.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a difficult. It is another difficult game to call from this weekend's fixtures, actually. And you've sort of said a draw, and I'm kind of swayed towards a draw as well. I do think that maybe if we play well, we can win. But my worry is your physical aspect, how good you are at set pieces, and we're not very good at defending set pieces and stuff like that. So I think you'll definitely score, probably from a set piece, as you said earlier, Joe. And have we got the quality at the other end to get goal? Probably, but will we score them when we've got 1 in 4 games? I don't know. We'll see. Aubameyang's got a good record against you guys, and that gives me hope that he might at least score 1. So it might end up a draw maybe, but let's hope we can snatch it 2-1, and then you can go on and win your next 4 games after that, and everyone's happy, aren't they? That's what we need to do. I'm sure you would. Yeah, I'll take that as well. I think, actually, especially our next game is Tottenham as well. So I'd probably take losing to you guys if it means we beat Tottenham the week after. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll win both of them, then that solves the problem, really. Just before we go then, Joe, just give your channel a bit of a plug as well, because I know you do some great stuff over there.
Yeah, so it's Turfcast Podcast or Turfcast TV as it is now on YouTube. Obviously, we're not just a YouTube channel. We're a podcast as well. We do 2 podcasts a week now. There's me and a few others. This season, it does tend to just be me. It's very difficult to get other people tied down to it. But come over and say hello. It's a bit of a lonely place at the minute, but the subscribers are slowly building and stuff. So yeah, we do a few videos a week, 2 podcasts a week, and of course all the social media pages. Just search Turfcast Podcast on all your social medias, and you'll find us there.
Excellent. And I say everyone go and check that out. There's some good stuff on there. I've been following you guys for a while. And obviously, Dan, as well, you've got your newly branded channel, and what else are you doing? Give that a plug as well.
Yeah, so obviously still only young, still within the 12 months, under a year old. So, adapting, learning, hopefully. I'd have to say as well, Joe's been an inspiration from a Burnley fan channel perspective. I've watched his stuff, and it sort of helped me want to do something as well. And it's not really about, you're not competing. You're a fan giving your perspective, and if people want to hear that, and I've been over to Joe's channel, and I've been in the comments and things like that, and that's what you do. You're helping each other at the end of the day. So yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say, obviously, thanks to you, Joe, because you helped me take this step into doing this. So first of all, yeah, big thanks to that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, mate. And I know what you're saying, because the Burnley scene was just nothing. But there was no Never the podcast, and there was nothing other than that. That's why I did what I did. And since then, you've started. Talk BFC has started. Louis, a young guy called Louis, that Burnley kid he was called, and it's all part of it. And it's good to see. And I encourage everybody to go and follow every single one and watch every single piece of work that you do and everyone else does. Like I said, I'm not competing at all. I want you to get your stuff out there. I want Burnley to be more recognisable across everything, not just myself. So it's good to see, definitely, and thank you.
No problem. Obviously, I want to thank you as well, Rich, because I came on your channel before I even had a YouTube channel. I was just a generic Burnley fan, basically. But yeah, no, thanks for having me, and again, making me want to do something like this. So thanks to yourself as well.
No, it's not a problem at all. I mean, it's I suppose it's slightly different from an Arsenal perspective, because Arsenal have got a million channels on YouTube, various different things, from the big channels like AFTV down to the smaller ones like me and people that I know. So it's a lot different maybe to you guys at Burnley when you only have maybe 4 or 5 channels out there. So, but it's good, and I agree. I think everybody should try and support everybody else, because ultimately it isn't a competition, is it? Really, it's everyone's got different opinions. They've got different takes on things. They do things in a different way, and there's room for everybody, isn't there, out there in the world of YouTube and social media for football. So, I like to try to get behind as many channels as I can, whether it's Arsenal channels, whether it's other clubs as well. I'd like to, I always check out other club stuff as well, because it's good to see other fans' perspective. I like to get guys like yourselves on the channel as well. It's what it should be all about, really, for me. That's I kind of like that aspect of it all, and it's good, and it's it's great to interact with you two guys again. I mean, just where can people find your channel, though, Dan? Just to give that, you didn't. Really
we're at Turf Moor House TV on YouTube, or at Turf Moor House on all socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Head on over, give us a follow. Hopefully, going to be delving into some more Premier League content, not just Burnley stuff. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm sure people will go over there and check it out. I know, obviously, I get mostly Arsenal fans watching this, but there are fans of other clubs as well, and I'm sure you guys check them two out as well, because it's great to have you guys back on the channel. It's always a pleasure. So obviously, thanks to Joe from the Turfcast podcast, which I always have difficulty getting out and saying properly, but I managed to get it right again. And obviously to Dan as well from Turf Moor House, which is slightly easier to say, but perhaps not as easy as some other channels are. But anyway, thanks to you guys, obviously, for coming on today, looking ahead to the game. I say enjoy the game on Saturday. Hopefully not too much. Hopefully it'll be a good game. And I'm sure we will all speak again very soon, hopefully. And so look forward to that in the future. So thanks for you guys for watching the show as well. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it. And I'll be back for actually, when am I back on live? I'm not sure. It might probably be the watch along on Saturday, actually, because I can't get to the game either. So I will be doing a watch along on the channel. So stay tuned for that as well. Loads coming up. Like and subscribe. And in the meantime, thanks to Joe from Turfcast podcast. Thanks to Dan from the Turf.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Speak to you guys. And I say enjoy Saturday. We'll speak soon. In the meantime, come on, you Gunners. Come on. 3 points again. Speak to you all soon.